developers in enterprise IT have figured it out, and they are adopting at rates that are pretty impressive. As a matter of fact, in a survey that I ran last year, only 1 in 5 developers at this point is telling us that they have not used open source at all in any projects that they have deployed. What we see, though, is a clash between the business models that corporate commercial software put in place and what's happening with open source. And there's this disconnect in the organization that I like to refer to as the 5 stages of open source acceptance. And I know you've heard this, but the first stage is denial and isolation. We don't use open source, and the data clearly does not show that. Then the second stage, when there's awareness, is anger. Why do we have all this open source? How do we get rid of it? Let's get it out of our production environment. Followed by bargaining over how that's done. Followed by depression when the organization realizes that their systems would grind to a halt if they actually ripped it out. And then acceptance. Now, sometimes this can happen in as little as a week.
With IT, one comment that Jeff made is absolutely true. Enormous adoption of open source in corporate IT. But what do you do when there are problems? One of my favorite experiences to relate is with the CIO of one of the biggest financial services companies in the world. They had an issue where they had a version of Apache that they were using, and they had a lot of customers on IE6. There was an SSL bug. This is kind of important for financial services to have SSL work correctly. So they had to fix it themselves. Now, because they're not a software company, they couldn't get the time of day from the lawyers to say, here's how we contribute to Apache, even to understand the contributor license agreement, let alone renegotiate that. So IT organizations would like to contribute the fixes. Maybe they don't want to show up every single day and participate in bug bashes, but if they've changed something, they don't want to experience the cost of reintegrating that patch in every new version of HTTPD.
I got to be honest with you, the first time any lawyer comes across the GPL just as one choice of license who does not have a software development background, just a lawyer coming at it cold, the first reaction is NO, a little bit more emphatically than that. That was my first reaction when I saw it in '96, and I said, you got to kid me. If this thing is real, this is bad news. So that was the start of my learning. We actually automated our governance process and made it extremely easy. So no open source technology is supposed to come in unless you go through what we have called an open source review tool, OSR tool. And we've got, when I left, as of a month ago, 12,000 third-party open source technologies being tracked. So that's, it's a pretty robust process and surprisingly easy. The easier you make it, the easier it is for the engineers to actually embrace it, and that's key because I guarantee you, they're using it. It's cheap, it's free, it's good enough, and they want to get the projects done.
You have to shift toward a price penetration model. You have to figure out how to build solutions on top of that penetrator product that you can monetize. That could be service, that could be software, it could be a complete experience environment, but you know what? That's a lot harder than establishing strategic control points and gouging your customers.
Every enterprise IT shop that does application development by definition is doing multi-source today. They're using open source, they're combining with their own internal development, they're using commercially licensed third parties, and they're outsourcing to offshore development teams and oftentimes organizations. All that really is multi-source. They have to innovate. What's the quickest path to innovation? And so they're already adopting it. They all use open source to varying degrees. They're all trying to get better at doing it in an efficient fashion. So I think that horse is clearly left the barn.
Understanding licenses and understanding the best way to actually capture and control the technology that you've got and the technology that you're deploying, and making sure that you're complying with license agreements. It's not good enough to bring technology in. If you bring technology in and you modify that technology in certain circumstances, you have an obligation to contribute that back to the originator. So you need to make sure that you're paying attention from bringing technology in through deploying it.
Power is shifting lower in the organization. In a sense, we're democratizing the way that software gets adopted.
If you look at the corporate side, they do want to have that growth, they do want to reach out, but where do they get the trust and security, right? Microsoft and Oracle have had a gun to each other's heads for a long time. Who blinks first? Who gives up a little bit of intellectual property? Who starts to say, yes, we can put the source code out there and these protocols can shift around? Is the other person going to get an advantage of that? So what kind of system can we develop where there's more trust and security for corporations to be able to participate here?